A letter of gratitude. It was a crisp morning in the coastal town of Carmel by the sea, where Clint Eastwood, the legendary actor, director, and producer, sat quietly in his living room. At 94 years old, his eyes had witnessed decades of Hollywood history, his name etched into the very fabric of American cinema. Yet, despite his storied career and the countless accolades that adorned his walls, Clint felt a certain emptiness as he sipped his morning coffee. Life had been good to Clint, and he had achieved more than most could ever dream. Yet there was a longing that lingered, something intangible. Fame and awards were fleeting, and he often found himself pondering the deeper meaning of it all. As he glanced around his cozy living room, adorned with posters from the good, the bad, and the ugly and unforgiven, Clint couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Perhaps it was the lack of meaningful connection, or the feeling that his contributions to the world of film and culture had somehow grown distant from his heart. Suddenly, the sound of a doorbell rang through the house, pulling Clint from his thoughts. He wasn't expecting anyone, especially not this early. He stood up, his old bones creaking as he made his way toward the door. Upon opening it, he was greeted by a sharply dressed courier holding a letter sealed with a golden emblem. The elegance of the envelope made Clint raise an eyebrow. He hadn't received anything like this in years. As he carefully opened the letter, Clint's gaze fell upon the words written in an elegant script. It read, "Dear Mr. Eastwood, you don't know me personally, but your movies have shaped my childhood. You've impacted my life in ways words cannot express. Your characters taught me about strength, integrity, and humanity. And for that, I am forever grateful. If it's possible, I would love the opportunity to meet you and thank you in person for the profound lessons your work has imparted. Warm regards, Barron Trump." Clint's heart skipped a beat as he read the name. Barron Trump, the teenage son of the newly sworn-in president, a young man raised under intense scrutiny. The thought of this young man, a member of a family with the weight of the world on their shoulders, reaching out to him with such genuine admiration, brought a lump to Clint's throat. He was accustomed to fan letters, but this one felt different. It felt personal. It felt like more than just admiration. It felt like gratitude. Without a second thought, Clint picked up the phone and dialed the number that had been included in the letter. The voice on the other end was calm and professional, yet there was an unmistakable warmth to it. "Mr. Eastwood," the voice said, "Barron is honored that you've accepted his invitation." Clint felt a smile tug at the corners of his lips. Despite the chaos and noise of the world surrounding them both, this was a moment that felt real, meaningful, and genuine. The next day, a convoy of sleek black SUVs arrived at Clint's home, and his heart began to race as he wondered what the meeting would be like. He had no idea that this was the beginning of an emotional connection that would span generations. As the SUVs came to a halt in front of his house, Secret Service agents stepped out, scanning the area before they opened the door to reveal Barron Trump, dressed sharply in a navy suit. At just 18 years old, Barron carried himself with an air of quiet confidence, his eyes filled with respect and reverence for the man standing before him. "Mr. Eastwood," Barron said, extending his hand with a warm smile, "it's such an honor to meet you." Clint chuckled, shaking Barron's hand. "Call me Clint, son. The honor is mine." The two exchanged pleasantries, with Clint noting how composed the young man seemed despite the weight of his family name. Barron laughed, offering a self-deprecating grin. "You'd be surprised how often I get that." They made their way inside, where the two sat down in Clint's cozy living room, surrounded by memorabilia from a lifetime of work. Posters from Clint's iconic films adorned the walls, yet the moment felt much more profound than any achievement or award. As Barron looked around the room, his eyes widened with excitement. "You know," Barron began, his voice full of nostalgia, "when I was a kid, I used to sneak into the media room late at night just to watch your movies. My parents didn't always approve, but your characters taught me things no classroom ever could." Clint sat back in his chair, his heart swelling as he listened. It had been years since someone had spoken so passionately about his work, and as they continued talking, Clint realized that this meeting wasn't just about admiration or fanfare. It was about a deep, personal connection. "You know, Clint," Barron said, his voice turning more serious, "growing up in the public eye wasn't easy, but your movies gave me courage. You didn't just play tough guys. You showed us how to face life's challenges with dignity, strength, and humanity. I wanted to thank you for that." Clint's weathered face softened at the sincerity in Barron's voice. He leaned forward, his voice quieter now, filled with emotion. "I never thought my work would mean that much to someone like you." Barron's expression grew even more serious. "It's not just about the movies, Clint. It's about the man behind them. You've lived a life of principle, and that's something rare these days. I admire that more than I can say." Clint's throat tightened as he listened. The words coming from this young man, someone with so much to deal with in his own life, were both humbling and moving. Before Clint could respond, Barron reached into his pocket and pulled out a small leather-bound notebook. He handed it to Clint, his voice filled with reverence. "This," Barron said, "is something I've kept for years. It's a list of lessons I learned from your films. I thought it might mean something to you." Clint opened the notebook, his hands trembling slightly as he flipped through the carefully written pages. Each entry revealed a lesson that Barron had learned from Clint's films, lessons in courage, resilience, and the importance of standing up for what is right, even when it's difficult. As Clint read through the pages, tears welled up in his eyes. He had never expected such a heartfelt tribute from someone so young. "Thank you," Clint whispered, his voice cracking. I don't know what to say." The moment was profound, a testament to the power of films and the unexpected connections they could create. But little did Clint know, Barron's surprises were just beginning. The emotional bond between these two icons from different generations was about to deepen in ways neither could have anticipated. And with every passing day, the lessons they shared would leave an indelible mark on both their lives. In that quiet moment, with the notebook clutched in Clint's hands, both men realized something powerful. They had found something in each other that neither had expected, and it was the beginning of a friendship that would forever change them both. The gift of connection. The following morning, Clint sat on his porch, gazing out at the rolling hills of Carmel by the sea. The soft murmur of the ocean in the distance and the rustle of the coastal trees created a calming atmosphere, one that had soothed him for years. Yet, today felt different. His thoughts wandered back to the conversation he had shared with Barron Trump just hours before. The deep appreciation that the young man had shown him, the honesty and respect, filled Clint's heart with something unexpected. Gratitude. Barron had come to him not just as a fan, but as someone who had been shaped by his work, someone who had found meaning in the very characters Clint had portrayed. That realization was humbling in a way Clint couldn't quite put into words. It made him feel seen, understood, and, for the first time in a long while, truly appreciated. Clint was no stranger to admiration, but this was different. It was more than just a tribute to his films. It was a recognition of the values he had lived by throughout his life: integrity, perseverance, and kindness. Barron had expressed his admiration for Clint's character as a man, not just his roles on the silver screen. The weight of those words lingered in Clint's mind, and he found himself questioning how often he had been able to truly see the impact of his actions on others. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Clint couldn't help but feel a shift within himself. Maybe, just maybe, there was still so much more to give. In the quiet moments of the morning, as he reflected on his journey and his legacy, Clint realized that the gifts he had given to the world, his films, his lessons, were not confined to the screen. They were living and breathing in the hearts of those who had watched and learned from them. And Barron was a living testament to that. Meanwhile, Barron had been up early as well. He had spent the night in his private residence at the White House, but his mind kept returning to the events of the previous day. He had never imagined that his simple gesture, reaching out to Clint, Writing that letter of gratitude would lead to such a powerful connection. The more he thought about it, the more he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Barron's life had been defined by public scrutiny, and growing up under the constant eye of the media and public attention had often left him feeling isolated and misunderstood. But Clint had taught him something he hadn't known he needed to learn: the importance of authenticity. Clint had lived his life on his own terms, never seeking the spotlight, always striving to stay true to himself. For someone like Barron, who had lived in the shadow of his family's fame, that was a lesson worth learning. Determined to express his gratitude in a way that would truly honor Clint, Barron had spent the past few weeks planning something special. He knew it had to be meaningful, something that would show Clint the depth of his appreciation. As Barron sat at his desk in the White House, surrounded by paperwork and the weight of his family's legacy, an idea began to form in his mind. A gift, but not just any gift. Barron knew Clint's love for rugged classic vehicles. Over the years, he had seen Clint drive around town in a vintage truck or a no-nonsense SUV. It occurred to him that Clint's vehicle choices were an extension of his personality: simple, strong, and built to last. It was then that Barron decided he would commission a custom-made SUV for Clint, a blend of modern luxury and timeless ruggedness, a true reflection of the man who had inspired him for so long. Barron got to work immediately, calling his assistant and outlining his vision. Every detail had to be perfect. He worked with the best automotive designers, overseeing every aspect of the project: the vintage-inspired exterior, the custom leather seats embroidered with Clint's initials, the sleek, powerful engine that would echo the strength Clint had portrayed in so many of his films. Barron spared no expense, knowing that this gift had to be something Clint would truly appreciate, a symbol of gratitude for all that Clint had done for him, even without ever knowing it. It took weeks of careful planning, designing, and perfecting, but when the SUV was finally completed, it was breathtaking. The vehicle gleamed under the Californian sun, a stunning testament to the craftsmanship and thought that had gone into it. Barron couldn't wait to see Clint's reaction when he saw the vehicle for the first time. The thought of presenting such a meaningful gift to the man who had unknowingly shaped his character filled him with a mixture of excitement and nerves. The day arrived. Barron, accompanied by his Secret Service detail, boarded a private jet to Carmel. He was nervous but eager. This would be a moment that would forever change both their lives. As the plane descended into California, Barron thought back to the letter he had written to Clint, the first step toward this incredible journey. Little did he know then that this simple act of gratitude would evolve into a bond that transcended the boundaries of age, fame, and legacy. As the convoy of black SUVs pulled into Clint's driveway, Barron's heart raced. He could see Clint standing on his porch, waiting for him, his figure a familiar silhouette against the backdrop of his picturesque home. The two men locked eyes, and for a brief moment, time seemed to slow down. "Clint," Barron said as he approached, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "This is for you." He gestured toward the custom SUV, its gleaming exterior reflecting the California sun. Clint blinked in surprise, his gaze lingering on the vehicle. For a moment, he was speechless. He had never expected something like this. He had always preferred simplicity in life, but there was something about this gesture that deeply moved him. The SUV was more than just a gift. It was a tribute to everything he had stood for, everything he had worked for throughout his life. Barron's thoughtfulness, his attention to detail, and the meaning behind the gesture were overwhelming. "You didn't have to do this, kid," Clint finally managed to say, his voice thick with emotion. Barron smiled softly, his eyes warm. "I wanted to. You've done so much for me. This is just a small way to say thank you." Clint didn't know what to say, so he simply nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "Well, in that case, I think I should take it for a spin." With that, the two of them slid into the vehicle, Clint behind the wheel and Barron in the passenger seat. As Clint drove through the winding streets of Carmel, he marveled at the vehicle. It was a perfect blend of luxury and strength, the kind of car he had always admired. But what truly took him aback was the personal touch. His initials were embroidered on the seats, a detail that spoke volumes about the care and attention Barron had put into this gift. As they drove, Clint began to open up in a way he hadn't done in years. The roads twisted and turned, the scenery unfolding around them as he spoke. "You know, Barron," Clint said, his voice quiet, "I've had a long life, a good one, but gestures like this remind me that there are some truly special people in this world. You're one of them." Barron's eyes glistened as he turned to Clint. "You've been like a second father to me, Clint," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Your movies taught me about life, but your kindness taught me about being a good man." They reached a scenic overlook, where Clint stopped the vehicle. The two men sat in silence for a moment, gazing out at the vast ocean stretching before them. It was a peaceful moment, a quiet reflection on everything they had shared, and everything they had yet to learn from each other. "You've got a good heart, kid," Clint said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "Your parents should be proud." Barron smiled, but tears threatened to spill as the weight of Clint's words settled in. "I've learned a lot from you, Clint," he said softly, "and I'll never forget it." As they sat together, surrounded by the beauty of the California coastline, something profound occurred. In that moment, the gap between generations, between the young and the old, seemed to disappear. What remained was a bond that transcended time and circumstance, a bond forged through mutual respect, admiration, and the recognition that both men had played pivotal roles in shaping the world around them. It was a moment of connection, a moment that would stay with both of them forever. Little did Clint know, this day was only the beginning of an even deeper connection, one that would continue to unfold in unexpected and emotional ways. And with every step forward, both men would discover something far greater than any gift or gesture: the power of gratitude and the unspoken bond between kindred spirits. A journey of unseen bonds. The next few days unfolded like a dream for both Clint and Barron, their lives intertwining in ways neither had expected. For Clint, the days had become a reflective journey, each one filled with deep thoughts about the impact of his work and the power of connection. It had been decades since anyone had come to him with such sincere appreciation, not just for his craft, but for the person he was beneath the public persona. Barron's gratitude had touched Clint's heart in a way he hadn't anticipated, and the young man's presence in his life was becoming something invaluable. The morning sun had risen again over Carmel by the sea, and Clint found himself sitting on his porch, sipping his coffee and gazing out at the tranquil horizon. As he stared at the waves crashing against the rocks, his thoughts were consumed by the bond he had forged with Barron. There was something deeply moving about their connection, something that transcended the differences in their backgrounds, their ages, and their places in life. Barron had come into Clint's world as a young man who had been shaped by Clint's work, but their relationship had evolved into something much more profound. They had shared conversations about life, integrity, and perseverance, lessons that Clint had learned the hard way and had passed on through his films, but never expected to be honored in such a personal manner. Barron had offered Clint something invaluable, a reminder that no matter how successful or well-known one might become, the things that truly matter are the lives you've touched, the people who hold you in their hearts, and the lessons you leave behind. Clint had spent a lifetime being a public figure, but he had never expected that one person, a young man from a different generation, from a family so entrenched in the public eye, would come to him as a mentor and friend. On the other hand, Barron had been feeling a deep sense of fulfillment, though a quiet yearning still lingered within him. Growing up as the son of one of the most public figures in the world, he had spent most of his life shielded behind layers of security and scrutiny. Despite all the privileges his position afforded him, Barron had often felt alone in a crowd. People around him saw the public figure, the son of the president, but rarely took the time to see the person behind the title. It wasn't until he met Clint that Barron felt truly seen. Clint had shown him that it was possible to stand firm in your beliefs, to be grounded in who you are, regardless of the weight of the world that may be pressing on your shoulders. More than that, Clint had given him something even more precious: the ability to be vulnerable, to embrace gratitude, and to open up in ways that felt both liberating and meaningful. This wasn't just about admiration for Clint's work in films. This was about the man Clint had become, a man whose life was marked by a quiet strength, humility, and unwavering integrity. Barron couldn't help but reflect on the countless hours he had spent watching Clint's films late into the night during his childhood. Those films had been his sanctuary, the place where he found courage when the world seemed too heavy. And now, having spent time with Clint, Barron was learning that the real-life lessons went far beyond the celluloid characters that had once inspired him. Clint's humility, his kindness, and the way he carried himself were even more remarkable than anything he had portrayed on screen. Barron's gesture of gifting Clint the custom SUV had been just the beginning. It had been an expression of gratitude, of course, but it had also been an attempt to bridge the gap between their worlds in a way that felt authentic. The SUV, with its carefully crafted details and personal touches, was more than just a car. It was a symbol of the connection they had forged, a connection based on mutual respect and admiration. Barron had put so much thought into it, pouring his heart into every decision, from the custom leather seats to the vintage-inspired exterior. It was a reflection of Clint's legacy, but it also represented the passing of a torch from one generation to the next. As Barron made his way toward Clint's home the following morning, he couldn't shake the anticipation building within him. There was something he had been planning, something that would be the final expression of his gratitude for everything Clint had done for him. Something that would cement the bond they had created. When Barron arrived at Clint's home, he was greeted warmly as always. Clint was standing at the front door, looking out over the driveway, where the custom SUV was parked, still gleaming from its recent delivery. Barron had invited Clint to take another drive that day. But this time, it would be different. This time, there would be one more surprise waiting for the legendary actor, one that would take their relationship to a deeper level. "Clint, I know you've already received more than enough from me," Barron began as he stepped out of the SUV, his voice filled with sincerity. "But there's one more thing I need to give you." Clint raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "You're a man of many surprises, kid. What's this one?" Barron smiled, a playful glint in his eyes. "You'll see. Come with me." Without waiting for a response, Barron led Clint down a path that wound through his estate, toward a secluded garden that Clint had never really noticed before. The air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers, and the sound of rustling leaves filled the space with a sense of tranquility. The quiet hum of nature seemed to accompany them as they walked side by side, their footsteps soft on the garden's gravel path. At the center of the garden stood an old oak tree, its trunk gnarled and strong, reaching upward toward the sky. Beneath the tree was a small bench, worn with age, but clearly loved and cared for. It was the kind of place that invited reflection, a quiet sanctuary tucked away from the noise of the world. Barron gestured toward the bench. "This is where I come to think," he said, his voice filled with reverence. "It's a place that has helped me sort through everything in my life. The noise, the expectations, the pressures. And I thought you might want to sit here with me. I thought it would be a fitting place to share something with you." Clint's heart swelled as he looked at the bench and the tree that shaded it. There was something deeply personal about this spot, something that made the gesture even more meaningful. "You've got me curious, kid," Clint said softly, sitting down on the bench. Barron joined him, and for a moment, neither man spoke. They simply sat together, gazing at the peaceful surroundings. Barron reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small worn journal. The leather cover was weathered, the pages yellowed with age. It looked like a book that had been carried through many years, one that had held the weight of countless thoughts and reflections. "This is something I've kept since I was 9 years old," Barron began. "It's a journal that I started after watching my first Clint Eastwood movie, Every time I watched one of your films, I'd write down what I learned from it. It's filled with lessons that I carried with me into my life." Clint's breath caught in his throat as Barron handed him the journal. It was a simple gesture, but it was filled with such deep meaning. As Clint opened the journal, his eyes traced the words written by a young boy who had admired his work. The entries were simple but profound. Barron had written about the courage of Eastwood's characters, their integrity, and their unwavering strength in the face of adversity. With each page Clint turned, he felt something stir within him. This journal, this collection of lessons learned from his films, was the most unexpected gift he could have ever received. And yet it was the most meaningful. The words on those pages reflected everything he had hoped to pass on through his work. The importance of staying true to one's principles, the strength to stand up for what is right, and the ability to remain humble despite the world's expectations. "You've given me more than I could have ever imagined, Barron," Clint said, his voice thick with emotion. This is more than just a gift. It's a reminder that the things we do, the lessons we teach, don't just live on the screen. They live in the hearts of people who watch, who listen, and who learn. Barron's smile was soft, but filled with conviction. "Your work didn't just shape me, Clint. It shaped who I am today. And I wanted you to know that. This is my way of thanking you, not just for the films, but for the man you've been to all of us." As they sat beneath the oak tree, surrounded by the quiet beauty of the garden, Clint and Barron shared a moment of profound connection. The world around them seemed to fade away as they both realized that what had begun as a simple act of gratitude had blossomed into something much greater, a bond forged through shared values, mutual respect, and a deep understanding of what it means to live a life of purpose. It wasn't just about the SUV, the journal, or the gestures of kindness. It was about the journey they had taken together. Two individuals from different generations, united by the lessons learned from the past and the hope for the future. And as they sat together, in the stillness of the moment, they knew that this connection would endure long after the world had moved on to the next story. The bond between Clint Eastwood and Barron Trump had become more than just a meeting of minds. It had become a lasting testament to the power of gratitude, mentorship, and the enduring legacy of kindness, a legacy beyond time. As the days passed, the bond between Clint and Barron only deepened. Each meeting, each conversation, reinforced the quiet strength that had brought them together in the first place. They had come from different worlds, one from a Hollywood dynasty, the other from a family entrenched in the political sphere. But in each other, they had found something rare: mutual respect and understanding. One afternoon, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in soft oranges and purples, Clint and Barron sat together on the porch of Clint's home, a final quiet moment shared between them. The gentle sound of the ocean waves crashing against the rocks below created a sense of peace that both men cherished. Barron leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on the sky. "You know, Clint," he said, his voice thoughtful, "when I first reached out to you, I never imagined that we'd end up here like this. I thought maybe I'd just say thank you, you know. Maybe tell you how much your movies meant to me growing up. But this..." He paused, glancing at Clint with a soft smile. "This has turned into something I didn't expect. Something real." Clint's gaze softened as he looked over at Barron. The young man had spoken with such sincerity, a quality that Clint had come to admire over the past few days. Barron was growing into a man with a deep sense of gratitude, humility, and understanding. It reminded Clint of his own youth, when the world felt full of possibility, and every lesson seemed like a new adventure. And now, as he looked at the young man sitting beside him, Clint realized that Barron's journey was just beginning. His path was full of promise, just as Clint's had once been. "You've got a good heart, kid," Clint said, his voice steady but warm. "I didn't know what to expect when you first showed up on my doorstep, but I'm glad you did. You remind me of something I haven't thought about in a long time: the power of real connection." Barron nodded, his eyes reflecting the depth of his thoughts. "It's strange," he admitted. "We live in a world that's constantly pushing us to chase fame, to get noticed, to win accolades. But what you've shown me is that the real legacy is the one we leave in people's hearts, not in awards or headlines." Clint smiled, the weight of those words settling deep within him. For years, he had been accustomed to being in the public eye, to hearing the applause and reading the accolades. But the realization that his true legacy lay not in what was celebrated by the world, but in the lives he had touched. This was the lesson that had eluded him until now, and it was a lesson that Barron had helped him rediscover. Barron shifted in his seat, his gaze meeting Clint's. "You've shown me what it means to live with integrity, to stay true to yourself no matter what. And that's the kind of legacy I want to leave behind. I don't want to be remembered for just being the president's son or for the fame that comes with it. I want to be remembered for the choices I make, the people I help, and the way I treat others." Clint's voice softened, filled with emotion. "You're on the right path. You'll do great things, Barron. It's not about the world noticing you. It's about you noticing the world and giving back to it in a way that matters." Barron sat in silence for a moment, absorbing Clint's words. The air between them was thick with the weight of everything they had shared, the lessons, the gratitude, and the understanding. Clint had been more than a mentor to him. He had been a guide, showing him that true strength came from humility, and that true greatness lay not in accolades, but in the impact one had on others. As the evening drew to a close, the two of them stood up from the porch, looking out over the ocean one last time. The horizon was fading into darkness, and the stars were beginning to make their appearance in the night sky. The world seemed quiet, almost as if it was holding its breath, allowing this moment to linger. Barron turned to Clint, his voice soft but resolute. "I know we come from different places, but I'll always be grateful for the lessons you shared with me. I'll carry them with me, no matter where life takes me." Clint nodded, a deep sense of pride welling up inside him. "And I'll always remember this time. Kid, what you've given me, it's more than I could have ever expected. You've reminded me that the connections we make, the people we touch, are what matter in the end. That's what life's about. And that's what you'll carry forward." Barron smiled, his eyes gleaming with both gratitude and hope for the future. "Thank you, Clint, for everything." Clint clapped him on the shoulder, a rare tenderness in his gesture. "No need to thank me. Just do your best in the world, and you'll make a difference. That's all anyone can ask for." As Barron climbed into the custom SUV, ready to return to his own life, Clint stood on the porch, watching him go. The vehicle disappeared around the corner, but the lesson remained. Life wasn't about the cars or the grand gestures. It was about the quiet moments, the relationships that shaped us, and the impact we have on others. That was the true legacy, one that could never be taken away, no matter how many years passed or how many awards were won. The week had been an unexpected chapter in both of their lives, one that neither of them would ever forget. What had started as a simple thank you had blossomed into a connection that transcended the boundaries of fame, politics, and age. Clint Eastwood and Barron Trump may have come from different worlds, but in that brief but profound time they spent together, they had discovered something universal: the power of gratitude, the importance of legacy, and the way in which true greatness is measured not by what we receive, but by what we give to others. As Clint stood there, watching the stars twinkle above, he couldn't help but feel at peace. The world had changed a lot over the years, but one thing remained constant: the power of kindness, humility, and the enduring impact of those who lived their lives with integrity. And in that quiet, starry night, Clint knew that the legacy he had built was one that would live on, not in the movies, not in the awards, but in the hearts of those who had learned from him, and in the future of young men like Barron, who would carry those lessons forward into the world. It was a legacy that was greater than anything he had ever imagined, and one that would continue to grow, quietly and powerfully, for generations to come. This concludes the story. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, please consider liking the video and sharing it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell for more captivating stories. Have a great day.